Nancy.
Hi.
Prison time's coming soon. Be ready. Donald Trump. Not much time left. Bad news.
Guys, I gotta tell you, I think these Democrats are really starting to lose it, okay? I mean, think about what's happening in this country right now and abroad, okay? We got what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, Afghanistan. We're an embarrassment on the world stage, mostly because of the Democrats. The President of the United States, being a Democrat, has embarrassed himself. People clearly can see that the guy is simply not there. And the sad part about it is that the next person in line to take the place of the president, if he happens to croak before he leaves office, doesn't really seem to be in her right mind as well.
The governor and we were all doing a tour of the library here and talking about the significance of the passage of time. Right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children.
Yeah, so that speech right there from Kamala is what happens when you write an essay and you've ran out of things to say, okay? So you got to put in some verbal diarrhea in order to fill up the page because you quite simply don't have anything of significance or substance to say. And that is Kamala in the latest example of her piss poor public speaking skills. Again, for somebody that is a politician that has lived their whole life making a living in a career based off things that comes out of her mouth, it is fairly obvious that that can't be the case, right? It actually has to be the opposite, right? That is the only explanation I have at this point for why in the world is Kamala in the position that she's in right now. Because there ain't no way it can be based off the things that she says. But hey, she's not the only politician out here, Democrats specifically, that are embarrassing themselves with the things that come out of her mouth, right? As AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who routinely produces verbal diarrhea, is the gift that keeps on giving. Now, if you guys remember recently, AOC was broken by Tucker Carlson, right? Because Tucker Carlson made a booty call joke about her, and that basically caused Ocasio-Cortez to almost go off the deep end, right? She started doing videos on Instagram of her putting her face in ice water in order to relieve stress, right? Basically, immediately after her exchange with Tucker Carlson, I think AOC is really going through it, right? And this time, she posts another weird video in which she whispers to us about how she believes that people don't actually really know what the real definition of capitalism is, or what capitalism actually is, because most people aren't capitalists. And most people aren't capitalists because they don't have capitalist money. They're not billionaires. Take a look.
I'll tell you a secret. Most people don't really know what capitalism is. Most people don't even know what socialism is. But most people are not capitalists because they don't have capitalist money. They're not billionaires. Sometimes the label doesn't matter as much as just talking about policies. That's easier to understand. Do you think people should die because they can't afford insulin? Do you think that fossil fuel CEO should decide whether the planet gets set on fire? Me neither.
Guys, is it just me, or has whispering to the audience become a Democrat thing, right? Is that something that Democrats are doing now, right? Because, I don't know, maybe their message isn't really getting across. They now have to whisper, okay? Because to me, that's creepy, okay? For somebody that complains about creepiness, AOC, you're being creepy when you whisper to people. I mean, but it's unsurprising because she probably got it from the creepiest president in history.
I got them $1.9 trillion relief so far. I wrote the bill on the environment. 120 days. Give me a break. Need time. I said, yeah, pay them more. This is an employees. Don't let up now. What's happening?
Yeah, so I think we all know where AOC got the whispering thing from, okay? I think she got it from Daddy Joe. But in regards to the actual substance of what AOC is talking about, what I find to be hilarious about this video is that she's acting like she knows what capitalism is. Oh, nobody knows what capitalism is, guys, right? These people are stupid, right? These people that are advocating for this system that I claim I hate, even though, AOC definitely is a capitalist. She pretends she's a socialist, but she lives her life as a capitalist. She pretends that she actually knows what definition is, and then goes on to say that, you know, people aren't capitalists because they're not millionaires and billionaires. Like, you have to have a certain amount of money to be a capitalist, and that is just not the definition of capitalism, right? Capitalism is simply a economic and a political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by the private sector, not the state, right? That's literally what capitalism is. It's about private ownership. So that being said, anybody can be a capitalist, and there are a whole lot of capitalists in our society that are not millionaires and billionaires, right? You don't have to be a millionaire and billionaire to be a capitalist, okay? You see, that's the problem with people like AOC, right? She'd rather encourage her followers to rely on socialism than to actually be a capitalist, right? They go out there and say, hey, you know, go invest your money in something. Go invest your capital. Go risk something, right? Put in some work, okay? Go own some shit, right? Do something that's going to allow you to benefit from capitalism, like, you know, the millionaires and billionaires that she complains about so much. But instead of empowering her audience, she'd rather act like they're stupid and they're dumb, and that, hey, nobody knows what the definition of capitalism is, right? Nobody knows what the definition of socialism is. But, you know, hey, what I do know is that AOC, you sure know how to act like a capitalist. You sure know how to be a capitalist, okay? You know, you got a nice clothing store where you charge a nice little margin on your clothes, right? Which, again, I'm not hating on that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying for a capitalist, you know, that margin is pretty fat, right? That you got going over there, okay? You own a Tesla, right? How did Tesla become about, right? How did Tesla become a thing? What about the social media platform that AOC likes to run her mouth on all the time? Capitalism, right? She has a French bulldog, okay? A French bulldog, a designer bulldog, literally would not exist if it wasn't for capitalism, okay? Because designer dogs and breeding, to sell those dogs for money, for profit, that is capitalism, okay? So her whole life, everything about her life, she's benefited from capitalism, but she keeps, for whatever reason, going on this crusade against capitalism, even though it's very clear that not only has she benefited from her entire life, she continues to benefit and use capitalism to her advantage, while telling her audience that, hey, you know, what you really want is socialism. And it's become clear to me that she thinks that her audience is dumb, okay? Just like the whole Democrat Party. The whole Democrat Party thinks that their constituency is dumb, right? That's why they go out here and they parade around silly conspiracies like voter ID laws keeps black people from voting, right? Because they know that people on their side will just eat it up, right? They won't actually really think about how in the world that makes sense when an ID is required to literally do anything in our society, right? It's really that simple. But AOC, again, is whispering because it's a way to demean her audience. It's her actually talking down to her audience. That's what it is. It's really amazing how these politicians work. It really is, bro. I mean, some of these people are just con artists. And I gotta say, AOC is really up there in regards to her ability to con the people that follow her, okay? It really is. But hey, you know what? I'm gonna end the video with this. I'm gonna let Thomas Sowell tell us what AOC actually is.
A recent YouGov poll found that 19% of millennials, 1 in 5 young Americans, holds a favorable view of communism.
Yes.
Now let me quote one of these young millennials, a new member of Congress, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who represents the Bronx, not all that far from where you grew up. Quote, "To me, capitalism is irredeemable." Close quote. Tom Sowell replies,
To me, she's irredeemable.
But to the, okay, so let's set Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to one side. To the 1 in 5 young Americans who holds a favorable view of communism, how can this be? What's going on?
I think the education system has a lot to do with that. Back when I was quite young, 20 years old, I read a book called China Shakes the World about how the communists took over in China. And in the last chapter, he tries to explain it. He says it's the education system had a lot to do with it. Now, at the time, it struck me as a very odd explanation. Now that I've had a half a century or so in the American education system, it doesn't strike me as odd at all.
All right.